This is QTV News coming to you live from our studios along Caribou Avenue. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main local, international and sports news headlines. The Gambia Ports Authority has paid a check for $50 million as its annual dividend payment to government for the year ended 31st December 2019. The Food and Agriculture Organization FAO and development partners conclude a two-day meeting to review activities implemented in line with the FAO's country programming framework. As irregular migration continues to loom large in the Gambia, Caritas Gambia, in collaboration with the Catholic Relief Services, conducted a reflection and way forward discussion with stakeholders on the topic. In international news, Tanzania swears in its first female president following the death of President Makufuli. In the wake of widespread allegations of human rights abuses after 5 years of fighting, South Sudan is urged to set up a human rights court to address this. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Welcome back from that break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News. Now the news in detail. The Gambia Ports Authority, through its management board and parent ministry, the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, on Friday, paid a check for $50 million as dividend to government through the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mamburi Njai. Omar P. Jallo attended the presentation and he files in this report.
The payment is a legal obligation on all state-owned enterprises to pay 20% of their profit as an annual dividend to government. This one is based on the GPS audited financial statement for the year ended 31st December 2019. In handing over the check on behalf of GPA, the Minister of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, Lamin Job, said government has gained more than twice the dividend paid by the authority in 2018 from the operation of the Port Authority. He added that despite these achievements, GPA continues to grapple with numerous challenges, ranging from the need for infrastructure improvement, like the jetty expansion and the acquisition of cargo handling equipment.
It means that the GPA were able to attain a profit of about 200 million. And according to the agreement, as I understand, 20% of that should be handed over as dividend to the shareholder, which is the reason for this occasion. In
receiving the check on behalf of the government, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mamburi Njai, said this year's dividend payment by the GPA illustrates the unlimited potential of the authority's revenue generation capacity. Minister Njai described the GPA as among the best performing and one of the most tax-compliant state-owned enterprises over the past few decades. The Finance Minister also said government will continue to commit its support to the GPA to transform the infrastructure of the port to an ultra-model facility. This, he said, will allow the ports to maintain its regional trade hub status due to increased efficiency and digitalization.
In past years, my ministry has factored into the national budget under the revenue forecast dividend revenue line expected from the state-owned enterprises that can be directly to the provisions of the basic service to citizens which are not recorded in the national budget. I therefore convey my sincere appreciation to GPA for being one of the only state-owned enterprise to be able to contribute this expected revenue sharing in the amount of $50 million.
At the presentation at the Finance Ministry in Banjul, the GPA board chairperson Babukar Mbaye expressed gratitude at being associated with the official handing over of the dividend payment of $50 million by the GPA to government for the financial year 2019.
We will continue to work diligently so as to be able to generate surpluses that can be used to help in other activities of government in relation to the development of this country.
The payment of $50 million for the year ended 2019 is historic compared to the $20 million in 2018 and $5 million is paid in 2017. The delegation was led by Usman Jobate, Managing Director, GPA, and the team comprises the GPA board chairperson and other senior members of the authority, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, Maud KCC, and business entrepreneurs, amongst others. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
The Food and Agriculture Organization and development partners have concluded a two-day meeting aimed to review the outcomes of activities implemented in line with the FAO country programming framework. As QTV's Mahmoud Lamin Choi reports, ministers and participants highlighted implementation progress and challenges in 2020.
Food and Agriculture Organization and partners held their annual review and planning meeting to discuss progress on the organization's supported programs and projects through the 2018-2021 country programming framework. The framework, which was signed in 2017, aims to address the Gambia's National Development Plan's priorities in agriculture, fisheries, climate change, forestry, and natural resources.
I am here to say and share with you that we believe that we have been able, through the CPF, to address the priorities of the National Development Plan. The CPF that we all signed up to in 2017, that we have been implementing since 2018, has allowed us to really make a difference and also recognize that the Gambia does not exist in isolation. We are in West Africa. We are part of the African continent.
Coronavirus pandemic. The Minister of Agriculture shares her ministry's progress, revealing that more than 14,000 farmers have benefited from agricultural input supports, varying from seeds and fertilizers to other support.
Mr. Chair, with the able leadership of His Excellency President Adama Barrow, the government of the Gambia is more determined today than ever to transform national agriculture into a sustainable, modernized, diversified production and export-oriented sector, which contributes to improve food security and nutrition.
The Minister of Environment expects that some of the issues considered here will include alternatives for a sustainable management of forest resources to achieve objectives under the Paris Agreement.
The recently concluded Action Against Desertification project assisted the implementation of the action plan, particularly in the north region of the River Gambia, that is the Northern Bank, Central River Region North, and Upper River Region North, covering 589,000 hectares.
During a presentation, an FAO rep lamented deficiencies along the way, most significant among which are pending financial reports, some of which are nearly 2 years or more overdue. This has become a serious challenge for the FAO, which needs addressing.
I think that one depends on the partners, because normally if you submit an activity program, you should be able to execute your activities according to the plan.
I don't know exactly what would cause that for a delay of over 1 year for submission of final report. I think that is inefficiency, and I hope bringing it out in this kind of platform is very key, because it will help people now to talk about how to really remedy these kind of things. But I think these kind of things should not be happening, definitely.
For sustainable harnessing of fish in our waters, the Deputy Director of Fisheries called on FAO to support and strengthen the Gambia's research ability to be able to provide regular data collection and analysis of fish stock in our waters. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Caritas Gambia, in collaboration with the Catholic Relief Services, conducted a reflection and way forward discussion with stakeholders on the seemingly unending irregular migration from the Gambia. This came after a 3-year migration project to improve the situation of migrants or returnees. Ajibintu Drame has the rest of that.
Migration is still an unending issue in Africa, and especially so in the Gambia, despite it being the smallest country on the African continent. According to the International Organization of Migration, over 35,000 Gambians arrived in Europe by irregular means from 2014 and 2018, with a population of about 2 million. Almost every Gambian knows what the phrase bagwe means. To the non-Gambian, this phrase refers to irregular migration. Action for the protection and integration of migrants in Africa and other organizations are seeking to address irregular migration via social economic means. including skills training and psychological support, among others. However, from the discussions, it seems these efforts alone are not enough, as stakeholders and returnees complained about a lack of collective and effective collaboration to tackle migration in the Gambia, especially regarding the plight of returnees.
So we need to really have a proper look and look at what serious impact we are making, and not just say we have trained 5,000 young people or set up 2,000 businesses, and after a year, maybe you are left with 10 businesses that are operating.
Other stakeholders also had this to say.
You are targeting young people and you are operating in different regions. I think it was necessary to bring on board NYC, since you are dealing directly with the young people as your target.
They don't have the capacity to train these people. But because we want this money, you will see this institution, a finance officer, an admin secretary or assistant, become a trainer.
So-called Bagwe returnees also say they face discrimination and stigmatization from society, starting from family members, as they believe they have failed. Among initiatives to counter this, some returnees have joined forces to discourage youths from taking the wrong route to seek supposedly greener pastures. Fatou Jain, founder of the Network for Girls Against Migration, explains how institutions use their stories and how returnees feel neglected.
Collaborate and communicate. We interact and join hands together. Why Gambia have a lack of collaboration, communication, information. Pour ñu jox la ko is a problem. People need money and you need nimbal. Legi dañ leen di oo di leen use ci kaw loolu di leen jox 200 300. Since bu ñëwee Gambia, since bu ñëwee ba léegi ñun suñu integration package ci jotuñ ko.
Mamina Ba, also a returnee, shares similar testimonies and calls for a more realistic approach to addressing the situation.
You try, we find land, we cannot find land. Unless we go to provinces, we find a land. And now we have a poultry, and we have a garden there. People are working. And even a single support from our duty bearers, we don't get it. And most of these trainings, I attended military. I have more than 50 certificates. The issue is, let's try and come together. The institution, let's be realistic. The impact and sustainability, for now, is important in whatever we are doing here.
Karamoke Keta, representing Institute for Social Reformation and Action, says African governments should come up with articulate strategies for migration issues to be a thing of the past.
We need to, as a continent, African governments need to look at the equation. How do we address the gap between the rich and the poor?
If irregular migration escalates unchecked, it has the potential to hinder a country's national development. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
From that story by Ajibintu Drame on irregular migration, we will take a short commercial break. Still to come, we have more local, international and sports news headlines. Do stay with us.
Join the Gambia's fastest growing network and enjoy high-speed 4G LTE. Dial *335# to subscribe to QCell's 4G LTE service. There's no need to swap your SIM. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
What is your take on this draft constitution as we stand? Butchering of the constitution.
You're trying to Maradona my state.
Agree to disagree. No.
And he betrayed
No. Why the Third Republic?
Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you for helping.
Yes,
it cannot be enforced.
State of Affairs, tonight at 10 p.m. on QTV.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News, and I am Jenna Bosonko. Now, Councillor Trust Organization of Fonyi in the West Coast region and the council of Labour Notables of Senegal on Thursday signed a memorandum of understanding for the implementation of sustainable agriculture in greenhouses and solar energy production. Babukar C has the rest of that.
The sign-in comes after a 4-day consultation with stakeholders.
which included visits to project sites. It is a large-scale horticulture, animal husbandry, poultry and vegetable production on 30 hectares of land allocated in Fonyi Santamba. This is expected to increase efficiency of the various parties involved and establish an effective plan to execute the project, which, according to officials, will be run by solar energy, providing 10 megawatts. The CEO of Kansala Trust Organization, Usman Jeju, outlined some of the components of the agreement.
The project, A, is going to be horticulture, B, poultry, and C, solar system. In that agreement also, we've also agreed to create a board between KTO, which is Council Trust Organization, and CNL, which is Cultural National Labels. And again, of course, hence the project is going to be hosted in the Gambia. In our board, we will also need the participation of the government. Here we are talking of the energy, the Ministry of Energy, Agriculture, and Environment. At least this department would be part of the board, which is going to be created to be overseeing or to be managing the funds of this present project that we are talking about.
For the Secretary General of the Lebu Notables of Senegal, Mamadou Diop Chun, the project is a blessing for the two countries involved in agriculture and share a lot in common.
li mu jënteel nag ci sunu toogaay bi te gën cee neex mooy ku ci nekk ci ñun am nga foo wéeru.
The positive thing about this project is that both organizations are backed by their governments. In return, the people will be engaged to make sure that the project is successful under the government supervision. There is no doubt that the project will be a success because the two parties that signed this MOU are all eager to start this project. Agriculture is practiced by both countries. Providing solar energy by the sun is expected to produce almost 10 megawatts, which will be a big boost in our drive to mechanize agriculture. The CEO of Kansala Trust, Usman Jeju, also spoke about the importance and expectations of the project, especially about the solar energy.
There is a solar system in this project, as I said before, and this solar system, as you could see in our project, the solar is going to be on the top of the roof. You know, if you look at the other system of how solar was installed in other areas, especially in Africa, under the solar system, you cannot cultivate anything. But this system of a thing is going to be in a greenhouse, and the solar system is going to be high on top. So underneath, you can cultivate. And the solar system on top of those roofs are the ones going to generate electricity, which is going to be used by the project. And as I said before, the excess of that solar energy is what we're going to sell out to our NAWEC. And the other part of the land also, the same buildings will be provided. Under those buildings also, there will be poultry production.
Once successfully implemented, the project will create employment and incomes, especially in the rural communities, and will benefit the two countries who likely depend on agriculture. It is also another step towards both countries' desire for food sustainability and security. Babakar Si, QTV News.
On to some international news. Tanzania's newly sworn-in president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, has spoken of the heavy load on her soldiers as she takes over as the country's first female president. Ms. Hassan used her inaugural speech to urge for the bearing of differences and repeatedly gave assurances of stability. Aliou Cisse has the rest of that.
Addressing a park hall at State House in Dar es Salaam, the new president said she had been sufficiently prepared for the role by her predecessor, John Makufuli, who died on Wednesday of a heart condition. The president said it was no longer time to point fingers and call for unity during the mourning period. First elected as Makufuli's running mate in 2015, Samia Suluhu Hassan was re-elected last year along with him, and according to the constitution, should serve the remainder of the 5-year term in the top job. She was a surprise choice for Makufuli's running mate in 2015, leaping over several other prominent politicians in the Chamacha Mapinduzi CCM party, which has been in power in one form or another since independence in 1961. In terms of personality, she strikes a contrast with Makufuli. Where he appeared impulsive, not afraid to speak off the cuff and let his feelings be known, she is more thoughtful and considered. One MP, January Makamba, who worked with her in the vice president's office, has called her the most underrated politician in Tanzania. Perhaps the most significant evidence of that was in 2017 when she visited opposition leader Tundu Lissu in hospital in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, after he had survived an assassination attempt. With people speculating the state agents had been involved, the pictures of the visit sent shockwaves through the country. She was born in January 1960 on Zanzibar, the semi-autonomous island off the coast of mainland Tanzania, and studied public administration in Tanzania and then as a postgraduate at UK's Manchester University. In 1978, she married Hafid Amer, an agricultural academic who has also kept a low profile. Since Ms. Samia became vice president, the two have not been pictured together. They have 4 children, with one, Mwani Hafid Amer, who is currently a member of Zanzibar House of Representatives. Reporting for QTV News, I am Alu Sise.
We wish her well in office. Now, Human Rights Watch has urged South Sudan to establish a hybrid court with the African Union to address human rights violations in the country. And Sumana Sonyasi tells us more.
The move comes a week after the UN Security Council demanded South Sudan heed calls to support the protection of civilians and stop interfering with the UN peacekeeping mission's monitoring of human rights abuses in the country. In a statement on Thursday, Human Rights Watch said the Council made clear the time for delay is over. The hybrid court needs to be operationalized. UN human rights experts have also asked South Sudan to make a genuine effort to restore stability, including bringing to justice those alleged to have committed atrocities. In their report to the UN Human Rights Council, the experts refer to growing levels of violence in recent months, with hundreds of civilians killed or displaced, and urge South Sudan to act swiftly to get the court up and running. Despite agreeing to establish a hybrid court to prosecute human rights violations, experts say South Sudan's delay in establishing the court is delaying the delivery of justice for victims. Meanwhile, the Security Council has outlined some priority measures over the next year for the government of South Sudan, and they include providing security to civilian displacement sites and ceasing obstructions of UN monitoring and investigating of abuses. Additionally, immediately sign a memorandum of understanding with the AU on the hybrid court for South Sudan, as well as start its effective establishment. South Sudan is Africa's newest country, having been founded on 9 July 2011. 2 years later, the country descended into civil war, which only ended in 2020. The government of South Sudan has vowed to heed to calls to establish a hybrid court and promised to ensure the provision of all accountability measures. What is not certain is when the court will finally be established. Answane Sonyasi for QTV News.
On to some sports news. Gambian para-powerlifter Mamadou Gamo will compete in the Powerlifting World Cup to be held in Manchester in England against the world's finest para-powerlifters to secure qualification spots for the Tokyo Paralympic Games. Our reporter Mamadou Gajaga earlier visited him at a gym, and here is his report.
The event will take place in Manchester from the 25th to the 28th of March 2021 and doubles as an event in its own right and a qualifying competition for the Paralympic Games. Preparations are underway in earnest for Mamadou Gamo as the race to qualify for the Tokyo Paralympic Games in August this year hots up. Mamadou Gamo is in the gym daily, working hard to earn a qualification spot to the Paralympic Games via the upcoming event. He will be competing in the 107 kilogram category. Even though it appears a daunting task, Modo is optimistic about his chances of securing a qualification ticket. I've been working hard in the gym every day with the support of my instructor. So far, I believe with what I've put in my training, I hope to achieve qualification. Mamadou Gamo is a wheelchair bound, but his passion for powerlifting is immense. As an athlete, he expects to make a living out of the sport. It hasn't been easy. Usually, I travel for a competition and come back home without a dime. I have dedicated the whole of my life to this sport. I have a family, therefore I expect to be paid. Although it has been difficult with me financially, thank God this time I've been given an allowance by the GNOC. The Gambian powerlifter will be accompanied by his coach Haji Drame. He says they are determined to secure qualification. Coach Drame also says qualifying for the Paralympics will be a huge boost for para sports in the country.
I am very optimistic, going by the performance of Modu Gamo in the previous competitions. We do have to make mention that this is the third World Cup that Modu is going to participate or take part in. He was in Kazakhstan back in 2018. Last year, before the lockdown, the pandemic, he was in Abuja for another very important event, which was a World Cup. This time we are going to Manchester, where, with what I've seen since we returned from Abuja, Modu has given me the impression that this is the time for Gambia para sports.
For any athlete training at a gym ahead of a powerlifting competition, a good trainer is needed to achieve success. Babukar Job is the one guiding Modu Gamo in his daily 3-hour training session. He sounded upbeat about Gamo's prospects in the competition.
yu bëri yoo xamante ni da nga ko si war a dimbale sax moom du ko dee daf ko dee bugg a dem defal boppam understand nga kon kooku façon nit boobu neex na dimbale koo xam ne da nga ko fekkat si yoon la understand mun naa ne bi maa liggéey ak moom nekkul loo xamante ne lu yàgg la trop waaye mu ngi see improve bu baax a baax te tamit.
He is so passionate about what he does. In fact, if you try to support him because of his condition, he prefers to do things by himself, even where help is needed. Therefore, I will say he is easy to work with. For me, he is ready for the competition. The competition will be one of the final qualification events for athletes aspiring to compete at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games, following an extension to the qualification period due to the disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Mumudu Gajaga, QTV News.
Well done and good luck to Modu Gamo. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. But before we leave, just to remind you that our maiden edition of the State of Affairs program of QTV will be airing at 10 p.m. I'm sure you don't want to miss that. Till we come your way tomorrow with more news.